just stay. I'll just move further away to the very end.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good plan. Good morning.
greatly appreciate you spending your Saturday. Is it Saturday? I don't know. Is it Wednesday?
Which day is it? Oh.
Your Saturday morning with us in this theatre with these incredible gentlemen next to me. My name is Jess McDonald. I work for GameSpot, and I'm here with the heads of the newly established Summerfall Studios, Liam Essler and David Gator. Yeah.
Very excited to be here.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to have you here. You may know Liam from his work at Beamdog on helping bring the GamerX convention to Australia and working with the Game Developers Association of Australia, among so many other things. Liam is a massive household name in the Australian games industry, so let me also introduce you to a lesser known name in the games industry, Summerfall Creative Director, David Gator. Woo! Now, if any of you don't know, David kicked off his career working on Baldur's Gate 2. His credits also include Neverwinter Nights, my personal favorite RPG of all time, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and Dragon Age. Coincidentally, those games also happen to be the reason I got no sleep and had no friends in school, so thank you, Mr. Gator.
Extremely same, so yeah.
100% worth it, wouldn't change a thing. All right, so yeah, we're here to talk about, you guys have just revealed your studio and revealed your first game, Chorus. So for anyone who couldn't make it or just wants to hear about it all over again, your keynote, David, from yesterday, do you want to just give us a quick lowdown on what we're going to get to see in Chorus?
All right. Chorus is a combination of narrative, choice-driven narrative game and musical. The musical portion of it, we're talking about interactive songs where the player makes decisions during the song that not only direct the course of the music, but also at the end of that song will then direct the course of the story. So really, the songs are our boss battles. And that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah.
So, I mean, I know we've been talking quite a lot about it and what a unique sort of idea it is. We had trouble sort of even thinking of other games that were much like it. So where did the idea originally come from to do something so out of the box?
I think that it came from a bunch of places, but when we started Summerfall, we knew that we obviously wanted to do a character and narrative-driven game because that's extremely our shit.
That was a given.
But we wanted to do something different, something a little bit fresh. And so we sat down and we, talked through a lot of different options. And Dave was like, what if we did a musical? And I, much like in our Fig video, which you should check out if you haven't seen, it was very much like, oh, hell yes. Like, absolutely, I want to do a musical.
Yeah, because we initially, when we were talking, we went, it was the same meeting where we talked about sitting up at the studio. We just sort of skipped most of that. We're just like, oh yeah, because we sort of realized that we were very in sync on the kind of studio we wanted to make, on the kind of game we wanted to make. So when we sat down, we went very quickly from, should we start a studio, to what will our first project be? And we started off with should we do an RPG? I mean, that's where both of our experience is. And we don't want to discount the fact that we might get there, but I think for the first project, we want to do something a little bit different. And I had been wanting to make a musical at BioWare for quite some time. It was sort of half jokingly. It's like Mike, I want to do musical DLC. Mike, we can have it in the fade.
Oh, yes.
And he was like, okay, if we get to 10 million sales, then it's like, oh man. So it was kind of a joke, but it, in a way it wasn't, because when Liam brought this up, he's like, so if you could do anything that you want to do, what would it be? And it was a weird question, because it's like, in my career, I've never had that choice, right? It's like, all right, I guess this would be my studio. I can do anything.
Shock.
So it didn't take long thinking. I was like, we could do a musical. Yeah, and Liam was right in on that. So.
Yeah, all my background is like, I am a huge musical theater nerd. So I was immediately like, yes!
Yeah. So what can you guys tell us about the game's setting?
So Chorus is urban fantasy. So that means that it has fantastical characters in a contemporary setting. So Chorus is in a world where the Greek gods have existed through the ages. in various forms and live among people along with monsters and various other of their brethren.
Right.
And in our game, the protagonist, Grace, is holding auditions for her band and having no luck at all. They're all terrible. And then this one woman comes in and just blows her away. And this is revealed to be a woman named Cal. And she's immediately like, yes, you're in. And later that night, she appears in her apartment bleeding. And before she dies, reveals that she is one of the Greek muses, the last of the muses, and passes on her power to Grace. And thus our story begins.
Yeah. Yeah, Hermes shows up, and Hermes is able to. He's the messenger god of doorways. He's able to connect any two portals. So he shows up in her apartment and says, he sees her covered in blood, and thinks that she is clearly responsible. Brings her before the rest of the gods, and the rest of the gods are very upset and believe that she's killed Cal, and thus she's given. What is it right now? A month? Yeah, a month to. If she is truly
changes.
in his, it's changed us a few
Early
times.
development, y'all.
You get it.
To figure out who's actually responsible. So in a way, it's urban fantasy, but also a murder mystery.
What is it like having to introduce so many new elements? Obviously, you're working with some understood concepts like mythology, but also injecting all of your own stuff. You probably have a lot of experience with this, the Dragon Age and stuff. But is there a trust that the audience will just get it, or do you need to balance how you're delivering lore and everything like that, combined with new characters and mechanics?
Well, I mean, yeah, when you say I have experience with that, that's been one of my primary responsibilities on the previous games I worked on, because you got to be careful with sort of the information flow. A little bit of an advantage here is that when we're talking about Greek gods, you can kind of safely expect a certain level of knowledge on the part of the audience. Like, I mean, somebody who knows absolutely nothing might be at a slight disadvantage, sure. So you want to still give them the base level of information, but have it be that you expect that somebody's going to know basically who Apollo is, right? And things like that. So that makes it a little bit easier. It's also urban fantasy, so I don't have to introduce ideas like, what is a car?
Hopefully not.
Yeah, so that is, I mean, for somebody who has to introduce fantasy worlds, this urban fantasy shit is way easier.
Yeah.
So that'll be a nice treat.
Yeah. And obviously, you guys have quite the team, one of whom is Troy Baker. What was the decision-making process behind bringing him on board, aside from what I assume is just getting to hang out with Troy Baker? So if I ever make a game, I'll be asking him to work on mine.
He's an utter delight.
Yeah.
It was less of a choice on our part and more of a phone call from him. So we... Troy sort of first interacted with the project very early on. We were just working on our first test song essentially, and he came on to do temp vocals with Austin.
Yeah.
And did an incredible job. Of course, he fucking did. He's amazing.
Pretty good.
He's like okay, I guess.
Well, it's like Austin is composing the song. He's like, oh, I've got my friend Troy here to do vocals, and I didn't realize immediately. Okay, so Troy Baker is singing our temp vocals.
Yeah.
Got it.
And it turned out that Troy and Austin have been talking about doing a musical for quite some time.
Yeah.
And so Troy was pretty keen. And later we were talking in the office and being like, we're really going to need a voice director because we're not in LA, either of us. Like, Dave's in Edmonton, I'm in Melbourne, fair amount of distance between those places and LA. And within 30 minutes.
It was the same day.
It was so close. We got a call from Troy being like, hey, so I've been thinking, do you need a voice director?
And I was like, after he hung up, I'm like, no one's ever going to believe this story. It was just way too convenient. But yeah, that is exactly how it happened.
And he came on board and has, just like when Austin joined the team, just immediately redirected the flow of things and brought his own expertise and talent. And so every member of the team who's come on has subtly influence the project in various ways, and it's been really, really.
Would you say it's changed significantly, or is it sort of the main thing you wanted to do but maneuvered slightly down the
It's
same
definitely
stream?
the thing. It's absolutely the thing we wanted to do, but just like
Refined.
So, you know, when Austin came on, he's like, here's how I think you could do these choice sections.
Yeah.
Here's like roughly how long I think these should be. And then when Troy came on, it was like, okay, here's how I think it should be performed.
Yeah.
Here's the kind of tone and voice we need behind this. Here are the kinds of people we want to be here and in this this game. I was about to say show. Kind of is also a show. And so, you know, everyone who's come on board has just improved things, and we've all been so in sync from the get-go. It's been incredible.
Austin was the critical one, I think, because when we were talking about having a musical game, the first question that came into our head was, how are you going to play a musical? Like if you're in the songs, and I already knew we wanted interactive songs, and when I started writing the songs, it became apparent to me that the branching part of the songs I had no trouble with at all. It's like that's not that different from branching dialogue, but how that affected how you would write the music and write the songs, because when you're making the choice, it's timed. But that affects you need a space in regular spaces in the song where you make those choices where the music kind of hangs for a bit, not long enough but that was the thing too. How long do we let the music hang? If it's there too long, then the flow of the song is sort of affected. If it's too short, the player doesn't have time to parse the options. These were all things we had to concern ourselves with, and like that was going to affect how the music was written didn't even occur to me until Austin came on board, and he had ideas also about how we were going to physically set it up. Because another thing was that when you make the choices in the song, the music changes. Like if you take a more aggressive option, like a defiant option, suddenly drums start coming in and stuff like that. So it is a different musical track, but physically you have to avoid the skip of the music actually changing tracks. And then there was Austin, who was
It was a lot of like little technical hitches we had to get through, which you know, Austin was instrumental, as well as we brought in a audio tech person called Steve Green. Anyway, that's boring stuff, but crucially important to us to make sure that the game can function.
Yes.
So everyone's just done an incredible job of just seeing the vision and really finding new and exciting ways to move towards it.
Yeah. So what size is your current team?
We're pretty small.
small.
We're like six people right now.
What is that like, going into a smaller team environment? I mean, what are the things that you've found work better than when you were in a larger team, and things that are more difficult?
Communication's a lot easier.
Yeah.
I can just shout across the
Makes
room. I mean, that is a big thing that I found. When I was at BioWare, for instance, there was a sweet spot where we got to about 70 or 80 people, and then the company really started to change. And really, I have a theory that the team sizes never actually change no matter how big the company gets. You get little isolated bubbles within the company. You just naturally don't. Your immediate group doesn't expand beyond that point. And you really had this sort of started getting cultural divides in the company, and communication had to go through several layers, and also approval for anything had to go through several layers. So being in a smaller team, we can come together very quickly, make decisions as a group, and everybody feels like they're being heard. And we want to make sure that they're heard. So something happens and you jump on it, and maybe not. Someone doesn't have the exact skill you need, so somebody learns the skill, just does it. So it really feels like we're in this together, and I really enjoy that feeling so far.
My favorite part is being agile and being able to work really quickly and change direction really quickly.
God, you say agile, and I just start twitching. Agile management is a thing in game dev that
Dave hates. Dave hates production. So when
I don't hate production, I hate producers. That's not true. They're so necessary, but producers.
Yeah, creativity doesn't have a schedule. I know.
I'm an artist.
Yeah. I think good.
Well, I mean, you guys launched about almost exactly 24 hours ago,
Yeah,
and I think you're just about to hit $100,000
Almost.
US dollars,
Yeah, let's
which is
hang on,
incredibly impressive.
Where are we? We're at
Round of applause.
97,534.
And that's just incredible. Are you imbued with the kind of confidence being able to go into it with the team that you have? I mean, as you mentioned, Austin Wintry, Laura Bailey on board as well. I'm sure a hell of a lot of other talent. Or is the fact that you're still sort of surging into the unknown a little nerve-wracking? You did mention how it was a little difficult to get sort of publisher support on something like this because it was brand new.
Yeah, like we've been speaking to publishers for the last year and a bit about this game, and almost universally everyone's like, this is a really amazing idea. This is really special. I can see that you're incredibly passionate about this. You are the right team for this. It's the right talent. But there's absolutely nothing like this. And so for us as a publisher to throw a bunch of money at you, that's a massive risk when there's nothing proven to show that it will work. And this is very common in game development. Like this happens with a lot of projects. Most projects you never hear about because they're too new or too different. And so
somebody has to prove that there's an
somebody
audience.
has to prove it, and so unfortunately that's us. And so we decided to step out onto the very thin branch of the tree and say, hey, like we're making this thing that we think is really cool and really special. Do you think so too? And so far, like the responses that have been rolling in have been just incredible. So many people have been saying, wow, it's like this game was made for me. And that's because it totally was. Like we'd spent a lot of time talking about, the kind of game we wanted to make. We wanted to make a game for people who are like us, who, love RPGs, who love characters, who love narrative.
But maybe aren't that big on combat or progression. I mean, those things are fun. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's definitely an audience out there for that. They like these games, maybe despite those things, that really they're there for the narrative, for the romance, things like that. And we will see. We will see if there's enough of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and the musical element obviously is huge too. And we've had so many incredible messages from people just being like, yes. Which we're very on board for, because that was very much my reaction when we started this project.
Yeah. Well, speaking of narrative, I mean, obviously that's definitely a driving force for what you're doing here. Do you guys think personally there is enough being done to support that well-crafted narrative-based game in the industry right now? And if not, is that a gap you're trying to fill?
I think that the support for narrative in games has gotten better over the years. It's starting to spread out more. Back in the day, they were only like you could count on one hand sort of the number of companies that kind of focused on that. Now it's spread out a lot more. So I don't think it's that we're doing something new on the narrative scope. I really think that the new thing we're bringing is that the addition of the musical element and how that fits into the overall narrative, because it is both. When we were talking to publishers, like the very first thing they didn't understand was, okay, how does this interactive song thing work? Okay, once we got that out of the way, the next thing was, so how does this work in the context of the overall game? Like, what do you do? And that was because I mean, a lot of games, especially even narrative games, really the whole walking simulator has been kind of the standard, right? That you when you are in the shoes of your player, you're in the shoes of them for every step you take and every person you talk to. The idea of having a slightly higher level view isn't very common.
And so we definitely had to work out the ways in which we communicated. And the gameplay is very much like it's dialogue driven, so there's a lot of talking. You have these beautiful environments that you navigate through in like point and click style, and then you have cutscenes and you have these songs. And once you see that in action, it's a lot easier to understand, but it's very hard to talk about. And so we actually had to show them how that works. And we'll be showing a video with more gameplay later in the campaign, so you can see like what a whole branching song looks like. And that will be what we call the Minotaur song, which was Troy and Laura. And it's just very cool.
The Minotaur song, you say?
The Minotaur song.
Interesting. I don't actually have a clip of that.
No.
I wonder if you guys could just give us a
Just sing it.
Just a quick preview. Would you guys want that?
Do we have the lyrics?
Hang on. I do have them somewhere.
I mean, I just think it would give us like a really good picture
Ah,
of the game.
of just
you know?
of just how that would work. I mean, I wish we can sing it. I
know how the Minotaur starts. That's the
what it starts with the player.
It does start with the player. Player's wandering around in the sewers.
Yep, and this is the wrong script. That is the right script. All right. So, was it? No, it totally starts with the Minotaur. You are correct. I am wrong. I'm not the creative director.
Yeah, we know.
But the scene starts
The
with
scene.
the player.
Oh yeah. Okay. So the player's wandering through the sewers. I just had to scroll up. Okay. You're not lost. You're not lost. Everything's fine. Everything is not fine.
I need a script.
Once we get to the song, you'll be fine.
Oh, of course, the Minotaur lines are not bold-faced. This is the player's script.
What wayward soul?
Oh, yeah. What wayward soul blunders in my shadows?
Are these your shadows? Just passing through. Total accident. Bad accident. And then the music
And the
kicks
music
in.
starts, yes.
Yeah.
Who's this come into my lair? Delightfully unaware. Did no one tell you to avoid the home of those who rend a limb from bone?
And the player goes, well, actually, the player has three options. This is one of them. I think this is the kick-ass option.
Kick-ass option, yeah.
And she goes, I promise I'm no easy meal, the kind who'll beg and cry and kneel. There'll be no chase, no, I won't run. You hardly have this battle won.
I'll admit a fondness for the taste of flesh and blood which has been laced with the tang of rage and fear. Surely you don't think escape is near?
I haven't been an idol long, but even so I know the rules. Watch me stop you with a song. There'll be no chase, no, I won't run. I'm not gonna let you have your fun.
Brava, these truths conferred with fear writ large upon your face.
Fight me if you're so inclined.
Hush, how dare, have you no respect? This game has rules which you neglect.
My song, my rules, I think you'll find.
Do not blind me with your lies. It's you who dies, you realize.
You'll let me through and stand aside. No more to do, but hey, you tried.
I will admit that's quite the feat, yet this affair feels incomplete. Your power's strong, that much is true, but this realm is mine. You may only leave if I allow you to.
And then we'll make a deal. You let me go. I'll do you a favor, quid pro quo.
And if the task that I should ask tests that bravery?
What else is new? Tell me what to do.
Then I agree.
Oh my god!
So the way the song would work functionally, he mentioned that there was the one thing which was the kick-ass option. When we would have gotten to the end of the song, where
I think it's where the player interrupts.
Yeah, well, there's the interrupt. That's one of the options. It's at the end where the player's like, "You'll let me through," and I think in that option she doesn't have quite enough flow, so she has to take the lesser option where he's like, "Well, you have to do something for me," and that is then the branching part of the end of the song.
So before this quest, you would have done a little research in game and found out a little bit about the Minotaur. Hopefully, you don't have to do the extra homework. You can just go into the song blind and hope that you pick the right options. But the idea is that you kind of try to find out how the Minotaur likes to be approached. What works with the Minotaur? Does the Minotaur like to be persuaded? Do they like someone who's really aggressive?
Every song's going to have a trick to it that you can investigate beforehand, and that may give you an advantage.
And in this song, what I don't even remember what he prefers.
It was the kick-ass option, but he demands respect, so the interrupt actually works against you.
Yeah. So there are options in these songs that are, you've got to do your research. You've got to pay attention. And then at the end, the idea is that with the flow that you've built up throughout the song, you can.
The final option in the song is sort of like a menu to spend, whether you're spending for like to have someone fall in love or to confess a crime, or in this case, to let me through the maze.
That's a very mechanical way of describing it.
Yes.
I would say you get to influence the world with the flow that you've built up.
Yes, that too.
That's how you sell a game. Well, that was the best moment of my PAX. So obviously, Chorus is an incredibly character-driven game. So I wanted to ask, what are the considerations behind writing a really good character? And more specifically, what you can talk about, what have been the considerations behind the cast of characters that you are currently writing for Chorus?
What makes a really good character?
Abs.
I mean, you're not wrong. For this case, we have a lot of the Greek gods that are involved. So one of the big things we went in was trying to imagine what would this character look like in a modern setting. Like they've been alive for thousands of years. Now they're sort of maybe lost and kind of dysfunctional, like one of those stars that you used to like a long time ago, but now they're just on to competitive dance shows. So what is this modern incarnation of them? How do they relate to Grace? Are they a romance? That sort of changes how we construct them. But mostly that they represent a part of the world and a part of the overall plot. Because when I find personally, if I think back to like my days at BioWare, I don't think BioWare we were never very exceptional at writing plot. It was there. It served its function, and it was fine. But I always thought it was the characters that really drew the players into the plot. You made characters that represented a part of the plot that you wanted the player to care about, because it's far easier to care about one person and thus care about what they care about, as opposed to being told the kingdom is in danger, and the kingdom is just for the player. Really, they don't actually live in the kingdom. So how do you get the player to care about the kingdom when it's this amorphous concept, right? So this is part of it. Is like this game is introducing a world to the player. Sure, I don't have to introduce the concept of a car, yes, but I do have to introduce the concept of who the idols are, what the chorus is.
Idols is what the gods are called. It's just BT dubs. I don't think we've said that publicly yet, but
there goes my information flow.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. But I still have to introduce all these concepts to the player and have the pieces of the mystery for the player to pick through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just answered my next point, but I was going to say that it's very interesting to me that BioWare has a lot of moving parts, but everyone I know who's a huge BioWare fan, and when they dig into the Dragon Age games, the Mass Effect games, it's the characters that they want to talk about. Yeah. People aren't, the other elements are fun and engaging, but the first things, this is why later in this theater we're running a panel on BioWare's love interests, because that's what excites people. Yeah. Forming those connections. Yeah.
And we have a lot of really cool characters that we've worked really hard to bring to life. And I think our art director, Benjamin E., has done such an incredible job of reimagining the Greek gods in contemporary life, working with Dave to, twist and subvert them in various ways, because, a couple of thousand years is a very long time.
Well, you did already mention romance, but you have made a Dream Daddy comparison with this game, so I'm going to bring it up again. How much romance can we expect in Chorus? And I'm glad I'm on this slide while we're talking.
The thing is, for me, romance went over well in BioWare games, no question about it, and the characters were our strength. But the one thing I always kind of regretted about romance as an element in BioWare games is that it was tertiary. You could engage or not engage, and if you did engage, it was still an entirely separate from the main plot. Like you engaged with it entirely separately. It had its own arc and ended, and it didn't really intersect with the main plot. So that is the thing we want to do here. We do have romance. It is still optional, but if you start it, it becomes part of the main plot and will affect the ending of the game.
I love their romance.
The other part of just before we move on,
Yeah.
the other part of like being a small game is there aren't like a whole lot of romances, but the romances that are there are going to be like in great depth. You'll get to know these characters, and who you romance will actually influence the end game, and directly influence what happens at the end. They will step in. Maybe they will step in at a crucial moment. And it's been, as Dave said, really important to us to make sure that romance actually means something.
Yeah. And the number is going to, it's still to be determined.
Yeah.
Well, we touched on it a little bit with the branching dialogue choices, but I'd love to know from each of you what sort of systems and mechanics in games you personally find most interesting and important, and if those preferences have influenced your design choices for the game. Yeah, it's hard.
I mean, like branching dialogue, obviously, I feel like that's obviously a given. For us, I think a lot of it, from old school adventure games too, and finding ways to navigate through worlds that are accessible. One thing that, we talked about early on was making the game as accessible as possible to make sure that everyone could play it. For a lot of people who don't play a lot of games, like on mobile, etc., trying to use a controller, for example, where you have two sticks, trying to move the camera and navigate a character through the world is actually very difficult. And we wanted to try to remove the barrier to entry so that everyone could play this game while still being really pretty. And so the way we came about that, we talked about for a long time, like, how are we going to do this? And we ended up sort of going back to the basics, being like, well, how did it happen, like, in the old days? And then we tested that out, and it actually works really well. And the world still feels very lively, and it feels like you are moving through spaces. It's also a lot cheaper, as it turns out. And so it allowed us to make a really lived-in world without the budget of a massive AAA game.
For me, I think the one little element I always like is when you have menu-driven dialogue or options, like say in Fallout or wherever, when there are options that are dependent upon your traits or choices you made earlier, and you get those little icons and stuff. We used some of that in Bioware games as well. For me, I always like those, especially if you got one and it's like grayed out, and you're like, do I have to replay and do an entirely different character to find out what's behind that?
Yeah.
I like it, and I also hate it.
Yep.
But I think I like it more. And certainly as a designer, I like inflicting it on players. So.
We appreciate it. When I was thinking about your game, the only thing I could think about that made me sort of draw a parallel, and I don't suppose either of you ever played The Bard's Tale by In Exile. It came out in 2004.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the only game I could personally think of that was at all like it was more of an action-y game, but an adventure game that had musical elements. I still remember the song they sung about beer. Did anyone else play that game in the audience? I mean, the fact, and I always wanted them to broach into that area further, because it's just something that doesn't happen. And yet that game is so memorable, not for the combat, but I remember this like song about beer that they sing at the start of the very game.
There are games that certainly the music has taken is more important, or even that has like a piece of it that, like even Inquisition had the when you had the low moment scene where the mother Giselle. Thank you. I was about to say Mother What's Her Face.
This is my life. Dave constantly forgets character names.
Mother Giselle comes out and sings the song, right? But it is not a gameplay element ever. It's just sometimes it's important, but it's still background essentially, right? But
And I mean, but there have been games where music is a functional element. I mean, if you look at Journey, the music almost interacts with you as you play. There's Dominic. Has anyone played Dominic Pamplemousse? Another very cool like musical game. I think in one of the old Double Fine games, or Double Fine or before then, Guybrush Threepwood, actually, there's like a battle song. That, you know, like, it's been around. Yes. You know, it's been around. These ideas have been around, but they haven't been the focus of a game, and they've never been fully
you're definitely
explored.
right. Yeah, I mean, like, even when it is an outside element, I mean, do you guys think music has more of a role to play in how affecting art and gameplay experiences can be than give it credit for?
Yeah. That, in fact, what Austin, I think, Wintory was really sort of driving for when we met up with him. He's told us he's thought for quite some time that it can do a lot more than it currently does, and it has so much room to explore. I think that is part of the point of us doing this, that you can have a story that doesn't necessarily need dialogue to carry you along entirely. I think for many of us, music is a shortcut to our emotions, and I think the potential is there to get emotional buy-in from the player so much more quickly.
Definitely.
Like cheating.
Yes. Shortcuts. Well, just to be nice and broad, in case there's something you're dying to say that I haven't given you a window for, what is each of your favorite things about the game so far, with what you're trying to do and what you're creating? Yeah,
like one thing?
I was too broad. Oh, you say as many things as you want. We're just happy to have you.
We're just happy to be here.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to?
What's exciting you about the game?
Look,
I guess?
the idea of just working on a musical is really cool, and the caliber of talent, like working with Laura Bailey, who is such an incredible talent, is really fantastic, and Troy and Austin, like we have been so #blessed to work with these incredibly talented, passionate people.
Sorry, I may have rolled my eyes.
I know. Oh, I felt it. And, you know, there's something really special about when you get to work in a team that cares so deeply for what they're doing. I think it's something that you don't get to experience very often. And the way in which this project came together was definitely like a merging of creative minds and passion. And so for me, it's less about what I mean, obviously, I'm looking forward to the rest of the game, hopefully, with your help.
Yes.
But it's also what's come before, and the process that we've been through, and you know, it's pretty special.
It's the friends you made along the way.
It's the friends we made along the way. I'm also really, really looking forward to people learning more about Persephone, who is so badass, so badass. Like, mwah. That raw butch lesbian energy is very real.
Preach.
For me, so the tough thing is when I do write the narratives, I often leave little I dangle carrots for myself. It's the way I keep myself writing, and there's always a couple of things that I get really excited about, like if I get to kill someone important or whatever. It's like I will write this boring part of the story because I really want to get to the carrot, right? And it's like, but I can't describe the carrots without getting spoilery. The only thing that right now that I really am excited about is that the ending musical scene is so complex that I don't even know how I'm going to do it. But I'm really excited to get to that point to try. I think I may have to leave that particular carrot, like dangle it for the very end, just to be sure that I actually reach the finish line, you know. And then we'll get there, and we'll be, as a group, we'll sit around and be like, so how are we going to do this?
I think we'll need all the experience that we can get to do that. It's going to be wild.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, I do want to open this up to questions. We should have a little bit of time. So if anyone has a question, if you want to line up at either of these microphones that's kind of back here midway down the room. And do keep in mind, there are some things that the guys won't be able to answer at this stage in development. So, you know, everyone be nice.
We'll be nice about it.
But having said that, to make a GameSpot AU's news writer, Eddie Macu, happy, I will ask if there's any sweet scoops you can give us, interesting stuff, new characters. Honestly, the color of the UI, I'm sure he'll be able to write a new story on. Whatever you got, anything you got.
We haven't talked a lot about Hermes. So Hermes, as David mentioned earlier, is one of the younger generation of gods. He's not super important in the scheme of things, but he's also the connective tissue that kind of pulls everything together, because he's literally the connector between worlds.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you want to share about Hermes?
You just said it.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's a lot more, but
There is more that he does in the plot, but I don't want to talk about that. No.
yeah.
Okay, well, I have a very important question that you probably won't want to reveal at this time.
okay.
But does Apollo have some kind of Mount Olympus gym to get those abs, or do gods not have to work out?
I think it's natural. I think he just
All right.
he just walks
Rude.
out. Yeah. Right.
It's just like that.
That's disgusting.
Oh, that is my favorite thing about Apollo, though. The one thing he has, he has the he always has Apollo always has
An oracle.
an oracle, and he doesn't. Someone just shows up eventually when the previous one dies, and he has an oracle. In this case, he's living in a basically a dump by the sea. And he has this young 14-year-old girl who's sort of a computer whiz who totally doesn't believe that she's an oracle at all. Like, she just Googles stuff for him and tells him, well, this is the thing. And he says, thank you, oracle. And she's like, yeah, whatever. But then all her friends say, but you hang out with him. Aren't you kind of his oracle? She's like, no, I could leave at any time. And they're like, but you don't. That's the thing I like. I think it's cool about Apollo.
That's pretty fantastic. That's even better than the abs, almost. All right, well, why don't we start over on this side? Oh, microphone, please. Please make microphone go. Well, while we're making the microphone go, do head to the campaign link.
You could just go to like big.co/chorus.
Yeah, or you can go to the big complicated one that I wrote out.
Yeah. Both are good. Both are good.
We all good to go?
Hello? Yep.
Fantastic.
Hello.
I have voice. Ooh.
Thank you, audio. Let's go.
So I have a question about, so for your first game, you've got a female main character. And I was just wondering, because even in 2019, like, that can be a bit of a scary thing to do.
Which sucks, right?
Right? Yeah. It's totally... yeah, and I was just wondering, like, how did you come to that choice? Was it just like a natural thing with the story? Did you do it intentionally to make a point? Or
We talked about it, about whether the feasibility of having the ability to play both genders for one, whether we would have a male protagonist or a female protagonist. I think because we involved the muse, that is eventually why we settled on a female character, at least for now. We will see how the campaign progresses, whether other options open up for us.
Well, thank you. I love any female protagonists. So
We're pretty passionate about it too.
We all do as well. All right, let's go over here.
Hi. I just had a brief question. You mentioned in passing flow.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could expand a little bit on how that works. Is it like, are there rhythm elements within the songs?
Not rhythm elements. What flow is a point value system, like a bucket of points that you build up while a song is going on.
Right.
Every option you select in the song will add flow.
Or remove it.
Or remove it, actually, yes. So you're trying to build up a pool of flow points, we call them, so that when you get to the end of the song, those are the options where you spend flow in order to generate an effect upon the world. That's the muse's power.
So songs aren't succeed or fail. There's a series of different
Yes.
options.
Yeah.
at the
And
end,
there is
depending
no fail in our game. Like,
fail
it's just
forward.
there's a different route through the plot,
Yeah.
basically.
on- Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Fantastic. Back over here.
Hi. How does writing for a game where the main character is sort of predefined compare to your previous work at BioWare, where the main character was much more determined by the player choices?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's always there's a, what do you call it?
Like a problem space, a boundary, a limit. Dave, help me out here.
Spectrum?
A spectrum.
Obviously.
Clearly, what else could that be? But a spectrum between how defined a character is versus when you have an undefined character, how much the player gets sort of put themselves in there, like whether you are the character and asked to directly identify, or whether you were sort of controlling a character that you perhaps care about but perhaps don't directly identify with. I mean, you can have very good stories, like even RPGs of various kinds. Like one that comes to mind, Planescape Torment, is perhaps an example of a classic RPG where you're not that character at all, but you do control what they become. And this is the same thing here. So it was interesting. It's the first time I've ever been able to have NPCs address my player by name.
Which sounds like a small thing, but is really annoying when you're trying to write an unnamed protagonist.
Or a romance scene. I love you, Inquisitor. Sounds so impersonal. So that's fun, but it just involves a slightly different route where you aren't Grace, but you are affecting the type of Grace that is coming through the story. We have different versions of Grace with the trait system that become emphasized the more you go down that particular path.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So currently, how many wild karaoke nights are being claimed back as research?
Look.
Are you at the tax office? Because if so, the answer is none.
Like maybe a couple, yeah. I think the most popular one is Popstar by KDO, which basically came out at the same time as we were writing like one of our early prototypes.
Which ended up sounding remarkably similar somehow.
So yeah, like thanks League of Legends. Yeah, we do a lot of karaoke.
Yeah, it has sort of become our whenever the team goes out to sort of celebrate a milestone or something, we go sing karaoke. Then our voices are very hoarse for the next few days.
I mean, we don't even have to go to karaoke to sing. Like, unfortunately for literally everyone around us at the office, there's a lot of singing that goes on.
Every now and again, somebody we're in a shared space at the arcade, so we're in the same building with other companies. Every now and again, someone will come and they'll poke their head in our office and just close our door. So, fair. We do a lot of singing.
All right, you'll go over here again.
One massive musical theatre nerd to another. Is there any like musical theatre shows that you say maybe your favourites or ones that are having an influence on the show that you want to shout out?
Influence. I mean, the one that we bring up a lot, of course, is the Buffy musical. Yes. Not just because of that it is a musical, but I mean the fact that it exists in a fantastical setting. That the music is diegenic. It's like it's in world. So everyone, it isn't just like we're singing and it's a narrative frame device. No, the characters are actually singing and the people are aware that they're singing, and that's the part that I like about it. But in terms of other musicals,
Into the Woods,
like
a lot of Sondheim. We're big fans of Hadestown. Yeah, when we
were Hadestown hipsters because we were fans of it before it went to Broadway.
Yeah. We kind of like scoped out the basics of our story and then found out about Hadestown and we're like, fuck yeah, like this is awesome. Something like Dear Evan Hansen.
Nice.
I'm a huge fan of stuff like A Chorus Line and Company and like old school as well. So
Book of Mormon.
Yeah, like there's a ton like where we in the office right now there's just like all of these show books on our desk, which I brought in the other day because there's a lot.
The reason we bring up Broadway a lot is that when we're approaching the songs, because you have to understand the songs, so each of them has its own narrative arc. It's much more similar to how a Broadway song is constructed, as opposed to, say, a rock song where you're more that's how danceable it is. It's the refrain. We can't do that quite the same. We need a story. If you listen to the song that's in the trailer, the one that Laura sings, there's a definite path through the song, right? the beginning of the song, she's like, "My life is crazy." Then it's, and I am actually frightened and maybe going to die. And then the path ends with this end of the song with, "No, I can't let this. I can't let this stop me. I have to win." That's the kind of route you need to take in each song.
Thanks.
We might have time for 2 more. So yeah, go ahead.
What sort of romantic diversity have you worked into the game? Is it, so you mentioned Persephone's raw butch lesbian energy. Have you got any other sort of like either non-monogamous or or any sort of that?
We're not talking about that yet. Sorry.
But thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Yes.
We really want to answer that question, but we're not yet.
Hold on. They'll get there. Sure. In the fantastic question.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to ask about how you go about writing the interactions of characters in games between other characters and their environment as an aspiring author.
Oh, that's a big question. Like you could have an entire discussion on that all on its own. I think the only trick I can really suggest as a short answer is to read it out loud. The thing I find if you're talking about how to do dialogue, read it out loud and that will be your quickest sense to feeling if it's natural, and that's what you want. You want to be able to imagine that this is what somebody would actually say, how people would actually communicate. I think when authors live in their head, it's very easy to go in a little bit too fanciful a route.
I would also add, I find it very helpful to have a very strong sense of character. So if I know who the characters are and how they react to situations, I can put them in an environment and then kind of just like hit play. And because I have a strong sense of who they are and how they'll react to things, I can kind of like play them against each other. And it's like a logical progression because it just makes sense for those characters.
Thank you.
Let's take one last question because I'm pushing it. But go ahead.
So you mentioned that Calliope is the muse that Grace meets. If you're using the Hellenistic model of 9 muses, is there a reason you've chosen the muse of epic poetry as opposed to any of the ones of dance, lyric, or rhythm?
Yes.
Can you share that reason?
Sorry?
Can you share that reason?
Not yet, no.
I understood half of what you said, but you guys did. Fantastic. All right, you're already doing it, but please join me in thanking David and Liam.
Thank you for coming.
We, of course, wish you all the best. If you guys are excited for the game, you know where to go. Please throw money at them. They're doing a very exciting thing. And do come back, as I said, to this very theatre at 5 p.m. tonight, where we'll be deciding who is the ultimate BioWare love interest on a panel with David Gator himself. Hope to see you there, and thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bad, but I like it. Like when you fuck with my mind. like that we're wrong, can't keep it right. No, no. Poison, but we're perfect. See the revenge in your eyes. Spare the goodbyes, replace them with fights. Oh, put a gun, hand on the trigger. Can't pull the trigger, consumed by a figure. Me and you make one messed up masterpiece. Disaster filled dream bound to be going up in flames. You know I love the pain. We're going up in flames. We're going up. We're going. In flames, you know I love the pain. We're going up in flames. We're going up. We're going.
We can come back, but the time is done. I'm running to escape from your left, don't lie. 'Cause I know your heart. Don't try looking for someone to forget. 'Cause I gave you my whole life, and instead you gave me nothing. And you left me here lonely, here lonely. We can come back, but the time is done. I'm running to escape from your left, don't lie. 'Cause I know your heart. Don't try looking for someone to forget. They all thought I wouldn't make it. They all think that you're faking, but seeing ain't believing. I know now. I take all your stupid, burn it as my fuel, yeah. 'Cause we're running out of time, so I'm gonna make it mine.
The chosen one, I'm not the one to underestimate. I want the throne, I loan the crush obstruction, rush through barricades, levitate. Got it tatted on me, told them follow me. They see the vision, now it's 2020, clear as tile laces, clear as day. No longer move around in fear, disarray. Pray you hear me like the winter wind against your window pane. Feel the bass, baby, soak it in and let it marinate. It's time to hustle, gotta muscle up and run through barricades, yeah. Obstruction, rush through barricades, levitate. Got it tatted on me, told them follow me. They see the vision, now it's 2020, clear as tile laces, clear as day. No longer move around in fear, disarray. Pray you hear me like the winter wind against your window pane. Feel the bass, baby, soak it in and let it marinate. It's time to hustle, gotta muscle up and run through barricades, yeah.
I got their opinions, and I got mine. I used to care what you said about me. Now I ain't got the time. Take it on me, take a seat, it's okay. Start again, touch sleep, you know me. Still about the love, nothing's changed. Gotta play that game. 'Cause we're running out of time. So I gotta make it, so I gotta make it. Sometimes I need a phone call, but you still don't answer. You break my heart in pieces, but you don't care now. You still don't care now. I don't wanna fight, baby, I'm just fine. I don't need you anymore. I don't need a friend, 'cause I have enough. I don't need you anymore. Please just walk away. Leave me, please just walk away. to